Come on, Sylas, she called, breathless but determined. You can do better than that. He launched up behind her, the grit of the course beneath their fingertips a reminder of their fragility. But just as he reached her side, a sudden slip sent him tumbling slightly back. "Whoops!" he exclaimed, laughter bubbling just before embarrassment creased his brow. "I meant to do that." Gwendolyn grinned, the moment blowing away the tension. "Wouldn't want to outshine me, now would you?" Right. Wouldn't want to steal your spotlight." His eyes sparkled mischievously, but as they locked onto hers, the teasing facade faltered momentarily. Something deeper flickered in the depths. Gwendolyn felt it, an electric connection wrapped in vulnerability. In the midst of the competition, groups began to fracture, alliances forming and breaking like waves crashing on a shore. Tempers flared, arguments erupted. As players struggled against their limits, alliances of convenience surfaced. "I told you to follow my lead." Marcus spat at his teammate, frustration dripping from his words as they confronted a tricky puzzle. "You just sat there with your thumb up your—" "Shut it, Marcus! You're not the only one trying to survive here," Sophia shot back, her resilience shining as bright as her indignant flush. The ensuing argument devolved into chaos, each participant hurling insults like weapons, voices rising. Gwendolyn surveyed the scene, scanning faces painted with desperation, fury, and fear. Suddenly, she caught Sylas's eyes across the room. He seemed to recognize it too. "We have to keep the group intact," he yelled over the din. "You know what happens when we splinter." "Or maybe we should just let them fight it out," Gwendolyn muttered, her voice low, frustrations bubbling within her. "Tension might as well be our secret weapon. Laugh now, but you know it won't end well." Before she could respond, a surge of energy swept through the air. Participants were sent scrambling, some making underestimations, others defining their boundaries. Gwendolyn noticed Marcus start to back off, and the shift in momentum was palpable. As the tension reached a crescendo, she felt an unexpected warmth spread through her. Sylas, leaning closer, whispered, "Use the chaos. That's part of our strength." "Good plan. If only I had enough backup," she shot back. But Sylas, unflinching, only smiled in response. Gwendolyn turned to survey the group again, steeling herself. Vulnerability had its place. She had to embrace it. The stakes were higher than she had expected, and the bonds they forged could lead them toward salvation, or doom. The voice of determination ignited within her. This was not just a test of strength, but one of heart. And somehow, before morning broke, they would need each other. Trust had to replace the discord. "Together?" she asked Sylas, a fragile thread of hope in her voice. "Always," he replied softly, a promise woven between them as they prepared to weather the storm. Scene 55. Taking action. The dim light flickered through the cracked window of the makeshift bunker, casting fractured shadows across the room where Sylas Archer paced, fingers laced behind his head, brow furrowed in thought. He stopped abruptly, snapping his gaze toward Gwendolyn. "So what's our next move? You know they won't just let us waltz out of here." Gwendolyn Frost leaned against a weathered wooden table, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. The tension radiated from her like heat from a flame, and she peered at him, her resolve strong, yet vaguely shaken. "We need to strike before they consolidate their power. We can't wait for them to decide our fate." Her voice carried an undercurrent of fear masked as determination. Sylas let out a silent breath, the air thick around them. "And when all hell breaks loose, we must consider what happens when emotions run high." He glanced toward the door as if the walls had ears, sensing the watchful presence of their shared captors. A silence draped over them, heavy yet crackling with unspoken words. Gwendolyn's eyes flared with a mixture of admiration and frustration. "Since when do we play it safe, Sylas? We're already in a game of life and death." Sylas's shoulders dropped as he took a step closer, the tension still thick. "I'm just asking you to be cautious, Gwendolyn. I can't afford to lose you to reckless decisions." "Reckless?" Her voice rose, slicing through the stillness, as if daring him to push further. "You think I'm playing a game here? I didn't ask for any of this. You treat it like a strategic exercise, but it's life." Their eyes locked, a staccato of emotions flashing between them. Fear, passion, resentment. The air crackled, thick with both anger and the undeniable pull of connection. Gwendolyn shifted, unease creeping into her voice. You don't always get it right either, Sylas. You're not as infallible as you think. True, but I'm not hiding behind moral ideals while the clock ticks down. He clenched his fists, gripping the rough wood of the table, his own vulnerability surfaced, raw and unguarded. She exhaled slowly, as if releasing a breath she didn't know she was holding. It's just that, in this chaos, I have to believe in something, don't you? He softened momentarily, adventurous curiosity dancing in his eyes. I believe in us. Before she could respond, the door slammed open, revealing a ragtag group of their companions, Miles, Evie, and Theo, each having reported gossip about the elite's movements like a chaotic symphony. Miles, what's the latest? Sylas asked, hurriedly refocusing the conversation. Word is they're planning a big meeting at dusk, Miles said, bouncing on his heels, the frenetic energy infectious. If we're going to do this, we need to move ASAP. Evie, her eyebrows raised, added, and we're all in this together, right? We can't let them divide us. For once, I agree, Theo chimed in, leaning against the doorframe, arms behind his head in mock nonchalance. But what's the plan? Sylas stepped back, the urgency encasing them in a bubble of camaraderie. We have to gather intel first, then strike when they least expect it. Gwendolyn shot him a knowing look, the fiery spirit returning. We can't hesitate this time. If we wait too long, it might be too late. We've got your back, Miles remarked, glancing at the others, who nodded in agreement. Their determination pooled in the room, overwhelming and tangible. Great, because I can't stand around here any longer. Gwendolyn rolled her shoulders, gazing at Sylas with a fierce glint of encouragement. Let's go. Stopping, Sylas looked at her, a flicker of something unnameable igniting within him. You're sure you're ready for this? She smiled, the tension easing just enough for warmth to seep through. With you? Always. As the group began to gather their gear, Sylas caught Gwendolyn's eye one last time. It was a reminder of why they were fighting, why the risk was worth taking. And maybe, just maybe, there was something more forged in the fires of struggle partnerships, bonds deeper than words could capture. Remember, Sylas said, his voice lowered, we'll need each other. No one else can do this but us. With a collective nod, they surged forward, ignited by the shared intent, the darkness ahead giving way to the light of their resolve. The battle was only just beginning. Scene 56, Seeds of Rebellion. The damp air hung heavy, laden with the scent of wet earth and distant smoke, as the makeshift gathering of players huddled under the arch of twisted metal that once formed a striking entrance to a forgotten exhibition hall. The sun dipped low, casting jagged shadows across the fractured ground, mirroring the unease among them. What if we just stop playing? Bryn whispered, her voice barely a breath against the rising wind. Gwendolyn, leaning against a cool steel beam, furrowed her brow and stepped closer to the flickering lantern, her eyes narrowing in determination. Stop playing? That could mean our end. Do you think they'll let us live? Across the group, Sylas crossed his arms, the flickering light catching glimmers of conflict stationed in his striking blue eyes. What choice do we have? Keep playing by their rules and we might as well hand them our lives on a silver platter. He shifted, scanning the rest of the group. But we listen to each other. We work together. That's our strength. The tension sparked anew as Sophia fidgeted beside them, her fingers nervously tracing the frayed hem of her shirt. But how? They're watching us. Always. The tremor in her voice was palpable, especially with the others catching her uncertainty. Then we must be clever. Deceitful even, Gwendolyn said, her expression sharpening like the wind gusting outside. What if we lead them into a trap of our own, use their own games against them? She could sense the shift among her people, hunger for rebellion, beginning to simmer below the surface. Have we really thought this through? Jack interjected, his brow furrowed. What if they find out? We scratch their backs, they scratch ours. Right, Sylas said, his tone a silk ribbon wrapping around his words. But it's the blood from our backs they're after. His gaze swept across the heated faces, laying bare doubts and ill-concealed hopes. As whispers of revolt ignited, Gwendolyn caught Sylas's eye, energy crackling between them. The air intensified, echoing their unspoken connection layered beneath the urgency of this moment. Outside, the clouds swelled ominously, mirroring the tempest brewing within their hearts, each gust of wind a reckless shudder we didn't control. I trust both of you, Sophia finally ventured, a spark igniting behind her soft tones. "You're my friends, even through all this. Isn't that what matters?" "Friendship?" Bryn scoffed lightly, but a smile danced on her lips. "I thought we were just here for the snacks and great company." "And here I thought it was for the charming ambiance," Jack mused, thrusting his hands in his pockets, a lightness threading through his worry, as laughter flickered around them. But Sylas saw through it, sensing the undercurrents, the fear, the eagerness, everything the players heaved toward camaraderie or betrayal. Sylas, sensing the moment closing in like a storm front, took a step closer to Gwendolyn, their breaths mingling in the damp air. "You know what's at stake. We come together, or—" His voice trailed off, but the weight of the unsaid lingered heavily. Gwendolyn nodded, their shared glance turning electric. The sound of a distant thunder rumbled in the background as if the sky itself conspired to amplify the energy between them. Her face softened, and she leaned in, the sense of rain-soaked grass and earthy musk swirled around them. "We've fought our own battles, Sylas. Together, we'll fight this one." The moment hung, sweet and tense. Time almost slowed as the chaos outside their hearts faded into a gentle hum. Their lips met gently, a soft collision that spoke of riotous love and shared fears, as the storm outside roiled in helpless fervor. The kiss deepened, pulling them into a world where hope blossomed amidst despair, flickering warmth in a cold reality. They drew apart, breathless, with shared laughter echoing in the void before the thunder cracked louder, pulling them back to the present. "Yeah, so what's next, Captain?" Jack piped up, clapping Sylas on the back. "A battle cry?" "Perhaps just a strategic retreat," Sylas quipped, fighting the anxiousness simmering beneath the surface. And as laughter scattered about them like leaves in the wind, the subtle currents of rebellion began to flow, their whispered defiance leaving an eerie but electrifying sense of possibility hanging in the air. Scene 57. Dangers lurking. The hum of fluorescent lights buzzed nervously above, casting a sterile glow over the room filled with desperate faces. Sylas stood by the window, staring down at the jagged steel landscape that stretched below. The air was thick with tension, every heartbeat a reminder of their precarious situation. Without turning, he could feel Gwendolyn's presence behind him, a magnetic force that drew him into the depths of her turmoil. "What's bothering you?" she finally asked, her voice steady but laced with an unspoken challenge. Sylas clenched his jaw, a flicker of vulnerability darting across his features. Gwendolyn stepped closer, the scent of night-blooming jasmine clinging to her, offering a brief sense of calm in their relentless chaos. The softness of her gaze held him captive as she dared to breach the invisible barrier between them. "Silence doesn't suit you, Sylas." He turned slightly, meeting her gaze, eyes searching for honesty among the shadows. Moments stretched taut like a drawn bowstring. "What if I told you I see betrayal lurking in every corner?" "Then I'd say you're not wrong," she replied, a steely resolve hardening her voice. "But we can't afford to let fear dictate our moves. We need to act." Just as the unsteady ground beneath them seemed to wobble, Jason, one of the less dependable members of their ragtag alliance, burst through the door, panic sweeping across his features. "They're meeting. I overheard it's about us." Gwendolyn's posture stiffened, but the spark in her eyes revealed a fierce resolve. "Who? The council?" "The ones we thought were our allies," Jason uttered, breathless from his sprint. He glanced between the two of them, sensing the tension thickening like smoke. "I think they're planning to—" "Silence him," Sylas snapped, his urgency slicing through the air. "No one can know what we've heard. We're running out of time." A shiver of alarm ran through the room, reflecting in the eyes of the gathered allies. Sylas closed the distance between him and Jason, grabbing his shoulder, a spark of fear igniting the cold, harsh reality. "You will choose your next words wisely." Amid the brewing chaos, Gwendolyn found her smile for a fleeting moment, a flicker of wit brimming beneath her grim exterior. "Very intimidating, Sylas, but let's keep our tempers in check, shall we?" She wrapped a hand around Sylas's arm, grounding him. Just as undeniably heated was the air around them, charged and volatile. Sylas allowed himself a fleeting glance at Gwendolyn, as if seeking reassurance in those striking blue eyes that dared challenge him to be more than he was. "Fine," he relented, turning back toward Jason. "What do you think we should do, then?" Before Jason could respond, Lena, entering with hair tousled and determination radiating like sunlight, added, "We can't trust anyone but ourselves. We need to call a meeting, but we can't let them know what we're batting around." She locked eyes with Gwendolyn, a silent agreement passing between them about how to navigate this treacherous road ahead. Amidst the whirlwind of voices, another character emerged, Milo, the comic relief of their unlikely group, with a mischievous sparkle in his eyes that served as a contrast to the rising tension. "Well, if all else fails, we can always wear funny costumes to throw them off our scent," he said, eliciting a smirk from Sylas and rolling eyes from Gwendolyn. "Right? Because nothing screams rebellion like a clown suit," Gwendolyn shot back, her smile breaking through the clouded atmosphere, momentarily lifting their heavy hearts. "Better than a bunch of sad sacks, right?" Milo retorted, grinning wider as the tension hesitated to dissipate. But the humor couldn't fully cloak the underlying dread that spread like fog in their minds. Laughter only masked what lay beneath, the knowledge that betrayal was close, and survival hung by a fragile thread. As the group debated the best course of action, the fleeting confidence mingled uneasily with fear. Sylas caught Gwendolyn's eye again, a moment of shared understanding passing between them, unspoken but loud. He leaned ever so slightly closer, their shoulders brushing, igniting the electricity that crackled around them. "Let's meet at midnight," Gwendolyn announced, voice firm, glancing at each person in the room. "We'll decide what to do next, and we're doing it together. No more secrets." A palpable shift enveloped them. Each ally nodded, their resolve solidifying even as the shadows of betrayal loomed ever closer. "I'm not going anywhere without you," Sylas said quietly, the words hanging in the air like a silent vow, carrying with them a promise shaped by both danger and desire. In that moment, with the weight of what lay ahead pressing down on them, the laughter faded, leaving only lingering uncertainty and the warmth of a connection too potent to ignore. Scene 58. Facing the past. Gwendolyn stood in the dusty atrium of the old Pinebrook Academy, its once splendid marble floors now dulled by time and neglect. Remnants of creeping ivy clung to the cracked stone walls, a pale reminder of what had once thrived. She rolled her shoulders, letting out a breath that felt like it beckoned the weight of the world to follow. Shadows danced around her, flickering in the dying light as she adjusted the ancient tablecloth on the long, weathered table. It was a mundane task, yet it felt like unraveling her own tightly held memories. Her gaze flitted to an ornate door, one she had crossed many times as a student, seeking wisdom and solace in the embrace of her mentor, Dr. Kellen Forrester. Today, though, she felt the entropic shift in their dynamic, a storm brewing beneath the surface. With a firm knock, she opened the door. The office was cluttered, books piled haphazardly on every surface, remnants of ideas desperate to escape confinement. Dr. Forrester, a distinguished figure with wisps of silver hair framing his lined face, looked up from his desk, surprise flickering across his features. "Gwen," he exclaimed, immediately guarding himself with a professional demeanor. "I didn't expect you. What brings you here?" Her throat tightened. "I need to talk about the game." He stiffened, the corners of his mouth tightening. "We've been through this. It's dangerous to speak about it." "What's more dangerous," she pressed, stepping deeper into the room, "is pretending it doesn't exist. You know something that could change everything. Don't you?" Dr. Forrester hesitated, casting a sidelong glance as if weighing the secrets hidden behind closed lips. "I'm trying to protect you." "By keeping the truth shackled? People are dying." Gwendolyn's voice rose, heat igniting between them. "You taught me that knowledge is power. You're suggesting we bow to the ignorance of those who revel in chaos? So you can plunge headfirst into your own destruction? I won't stand by and watch you throw your life away," he snapped, his eyes hardening into flint. Gwendolyn's heart raced, the familiar sense of rebellion sparking. "You should know I've survived worse. I'm not that naive girl who begged for your approval. I'm a leader now." Her voice crackled with conviction, but she felt the sting of vulnerability beneath the bravado. Dr. Forrester's expression softened for a fleeting moment before he masked it, folding his arms tightly as if warding off any flicker of emotional connection. "The stakes are higher than you realize," he said, his voice low. "Trust is a luxury we cannot afford." "Then tell me where I can find it," she shot back. The people I care about are trapped in a losing game. With a sigh, he ran a hand through his hair, defeat mingling with resignation. What you want doesn't always lead to what is right. And yet, his gaze faltered as it landed on her, an unexpected flux of nostalgia flashing in his eyes. In that moment, the air thickened with the weight of their shared history, the unspoken bond they had once cherished now palpable, yet strained. Gwen. But she interrupted him sharply, fear igniting the need for truth. Stop tiptoeing around the issue. You've shielded me long enough. Did you orchestrate this? Did you turn your back on us all? Was it you? The accusation hung in the air, heavy yet electrifying. Dr. Forrester's jaw tightened, conflict painting his features. You don't understand the complexities. I understand betrayal, she interrupted, her heart racing, an unsteady blend of anger and fear cascading through her. You're my mentor, but you're also afraid of being exposed. Just tell me the truth. Finally, he stepped forward, the mask slipping just slightly. You'll put everything at risk, your friends, your mission. Her pulse quickened as she stepped closer, lowering her voice. And what about us? What sacrifice did we make for a shadow of this? For the briefest moment, a flicker of longing appeared in his eyes. You deserve better than this, Gwendolyn. Then be better. Help me end this. She could feel the gulf between them closing, a magnetic pull fraught with tension. In that rare moment of honesty, they both moved closer, caught in the allure of their connection, unyielding, yet tentative. But the atmosphere, electrified with possibility, shifted once again. Shadows returned, reclaiming the safe distance they had carved. I can't, he murmured, turning away. As Gwendolyn stepped back, reality crashed over her, reminding her of the precarious nature of their entangled fates. In that moment, she understood. Finding the truth might cost her more than she was willing to pay. Then I'll find it without you, she declared, her resolve firm as she exited the room, leaving unanswered questions echoing behind her. In the silence that followed, Dr. Forrester stared at the door, a myriad of emotions swirling beneath his stoic facade. Scene 59. Hidden Agendas. The arena loomed, a towering edifice of steel and shadow, its walls glistening with a damp sheen that mirrored the tension rising within. It was a cauldron of echoes, every whispered threat caught in the stale air as if the very structure held its breath, anticipating the turmoil to come. Shadows fell like dark waves across the cold concrete floor, accentuating the wary glances exchanged among the 12 assembled participants. Gwendolyn Frost stood near the center, her posture exuding defiance, a stark contrast to the creeping unease that shrouded them. A flicker of recognition sparked within her as Sylas Archer entered the dim space. His smile, usually a beacon of charisma, seemed strained, the light in his eyes dulled by the weight of unspoken secrets. Gwendolyn's heart clenched as she registered the undercurrent of tension between them. He wasn't the only participant hiding something. Treachery was like perfume sweet but suffocating. Gwen, he said, his voice laced with a pained familiarity that sent shivers through the air. Don't Gwen me, Sylas, she snapped, her voice cutting through the thick, oppressive atmosphere. You think we can trust anyone here? Distant murmurs erupted, participants sharing conspiratorial glances, a hushed acknowledgement of the fragile alliances forming like shards of glass on a precipice. Thomas, ever the instigator, leaned closer to Karen and whispered, I heard rumors about Sylas. Something about a past that doesn't just haunt him, it defines him. To be honest, Karen replied, her brows drawing together, we're all haunted here. We're in a death game, for crying out loud. Doesn't matter who we were before. Across the room, Chester, the fleet-footed strategist, drummed his fingers against his thigh, eyes darting between Gwendolyn and Sylas. And don't forget who we might be using to survive, he tossed out. Every alliance has its price. Gwendolyn shot him a warning glare before turning back to Sylas, her voice barely above a whisper. What do you know that we don't? What were you a part of? Sylas clenched his fists at his sides, his vulnerability slipping like sand through an hourglass. Whatever's happening here, Gwen, we're not in control. You need to trust me. Trust? She echoed incredulously, her voice rising. You lost the right to ask for that when you stepped into this arena. A taut silence enveloped them, thickening like fog as the air hummed with anticipation. The others watched, a collection of tense bodies waiting for the thread of conflict to snap, Sylas, pushing through the weight of his own tumult, stepped closer. And if we don't band together, what happens next? Do we get picked off one by one? That's your plan, isn't it? A challenge hung in Gwendolyn's tone. To play the field, keeping secrets while we're out here fighting for our lives? Keith, leaning against a pillar, let out a harsh laugh. Now that's rich. Are we surprised? The ones with the most to hide are always the loudest in a crisis. The atmosphere chilled, and Gwendolyn felt the flames of jealousy lick at her insides as she caught Sylas's gaze lingering on her. Something more than just desperation hiding there. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, Luciana, with her vibrant copper hair and sharp tongue, interrupted. Enough. We can either tear each other apart or get through this together. Blame and blame will only lead us to the same grave. Together? Karen scoffed. This is the arena, not some camaraderie club. What's your hidden agenda, Lucy? Outside voices grew louder, echoing over their chaos, intertwining into a cacophony. Thomas rolled his eyes, exasperated. Fine, let's pretend we're all pristine little angels, but in the end, you'll all realize this game isn't about noble ideals. As the tension reached its boiling point, Gwendolyn found herself face to face with Sylas again, the air crackling between them. You still haven't told me, she insisted, her voice steady despite the whirlwind around them. What are you keeping from us? Sylas's features softened momentarily, revealing the man both tortured and resolute. I'm trying to protect you, all of you, but I can't do it alone. The murmur from the others faded to a distant hum, leaving just the two of them in focus, cloaked in a fragile silence. You think I'd trust you just because you're using your charm and wit? No, Sylas replied, leaning closer, the tension shifting. I think you'll trust me because you know the same fear I carry. And just like that, a gentler touch surfaced, as if the entire room had shrunk to just them, where hidden agendas mingled with something more profound. Whatever lay ahead, change was in the air, thick and palpable, each of them navigating a treacherous sea of secrets and survival. One thing was certain, their stories would intertwine like the fates they fought against. Are we still pretending? She murmured softly, their faces mere inches apart. Only if you can handle the truth, Sylas whispered, his tone a fragile thread, holding both vulnerability and resolve. Scene 60. Allegiances shift. The hum of the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the concrete walls of the dimly lit chamber, where the scent of sweat and tension hung thick in the air. A brittle silence enveloped the gathered group, broken only by the occasional shuffle of feet as the participants shifted uneasily. The stakes had never felt higher, and the pulse of the room quickened, mirroring the rapid heartbeat of Sylas Archer, who stood in the center, his mind racing. Across from him, Gwendolyn Frost's eyes darted from face to face, searching for the flicker of betrayal she was sure lurked behind each pair of guarded expressions. Her long fingers drummed lightly against her thigh, an unconscious rhythm that betrayed her own anxiety. The air crackled with the aftermath of an explosive revelation. Trust had been shattered, and everyone was now a potential foe. Do you really believe we can just forget what just happened? Sylas's voice was steady, but his jaw clenched involuntarily. Betrayal is not easily washed away, Gwendolyn. Not all betrayal is the same, she shot back defensively, her tone sharp yet laced with frustration. Perhaps there are bigger forces at play here, and we should be looking out for each other instead of pointing fingers. As the debate simmered, the tension rippled through the room, igniting heated whispers among the others. Lila, a petite woman with a fierce demeanor, leaned in towards Marcus, her voice low but fervent. You don't really trust him, do you? He was part of this whole mess before we even got here. No one is innocent, Marcus replied, his brow furrowed as he surveyed the others, considering their loyalties and hidden agendas. We're all in this for our own survival now. Sylas might just be our best shot. Sylas caught the edge of Lila's cynical smirk, and it caught in his throat. The unease was palpable as he exchanged a glance with Gwendolyn. Their shared history, once a source of strength, now felt like a fragile connection amidst a whirlwind of deception and doubt. He stepped closer to her, his voice lowering to a murmur. So what now? Are we choosing sides? Her piercing gaze softened for a fleeting moment, and the weight of their unspoken bond pulsed between them. I don't know, she replied, vulnerability creeping into her voice. but we can't fight each other. Just then, a loud clang echoed through the chamber as the heavy metal door creaked open. Caleb, a boisterous young man with an infectious laugh, stumbled in, his wild hair sweating against his forehead. Guys, you won't believe what I just heard. The guards have eyes everywhere. We need to come together, or we're... Enough with the pep talks, Caleb, Lila interjected, rolling her eyes. Feeling warm and fuzzy isn't going to save us. Caleb shrugged, unapologetic. Couldn't hurt to try a little optimism, right? Right, Sylas scoffed sarcastically, because optimism has worked wonders for us thus far. He threw a glare back at Gwendolyn, who remained focused on the door, her mind racing to the possibilities swirling within her. Moments later, Amelia, the sharp-eyed strategist of the group, entered, immediately sensing the tension. What's happening here? Have we turned on each other already? Her arms crossed defiantly, mirroring the uncertainty all around. No one is turned, Gwendolyn said firmly, though her heart raced at the thought of alliances shattering before they even had a chance to solidify. But trust is a fragile thing, and it's slipping through our fingers. Suddenly, the weight of calories burned through laughter and anger transformed Sylas's stance. He stepped forward, desperation heightening his senses. We're all we have. If we defend our own, we increase our odds. We can strategize, but we must do it together. In that charged silence, Gwendolyn found herself closer to Sylas, the energy between them shifting, vibrating with unspoken ideas of unity and emotion. She could feel the heat radiating from his skin as he whispered, "Can you really believe I would betray you again?" Her breath hitched at the proximity, a rush of infatuation igniting. "I'm scared to trust anyone, Sylas, but you." The air between them thickened as if every shared moment was flickering alive. Without another thought, he leaned towards her, the world around them fading. Their lips met softly, a hesitant embrace of warmth and desire that stilled the chaos around them. Every doubt, every secret was momentarily brushed aside as a shared purpose ignited between them. As their kiss deepened, the reality of betrayal and alliances faded into the background, where whispers of their names lingered like shadows. "We can face this together," Sylas murmured against her lips, the promise of a united front surfacing amidst the uncertain tide. With the galaxy of uncertainty swirling beyond their intimate bubble, Gwendolyn pulled back slightly, the spark of determination flickering in her eyes. "Then let's get to work." The shift in alliances was not just necessary. It was imperative, and as the world outside raged on, they stood ready to navigate the storm. Scene 61. Whispers of a coup. Sylas Archer stood at the edge of the dilapidated warehouse, the air heavy with the metallic scent of rust that clung to the cold concrete walls. He gazed into the darkened expanse of the room, but his thoughts drifted. The shadows danced like wraiths, mirroring the turmoil within. He had played his part too long, manipulated by the very system he had once helped create. "Are we ready for this?" Gwendolyn Frost's voice cut through the silence, her brow furrowed as she tightened the grip on the tactical map laid out between them. She was a paradox, fierce yet tender, driven yet vulnerable, and her determination resonated with Sylas like a silent drumbeat. Outside, the sounds of distant sirens painted their world in chaos, but here they were, laying groundwork for their own quiet rebellion. "It's now or never," Sylas replied, fighting the urge to stride over to her and envelop her in a cocoon of reassurance, to dispel the doubts that clouded her eyes. On approach, he caught the scent of musk and faint lavender, a memory of softer days whispered from the past. "Then we'd better make this count," Gwendolyn said, her tone lightening for a brief moment, though an undercurrent tremored beneath it. Laughter echoed from across the room, pulling them both from their intensity. It was Jess trying to lighten the mood, juggling 2 water bottles like an untrained clown. "Seriously, we need to keep hydrated. It's like a sauna in here," she chirped, tossing one to a distracted Marcus, who caught it with a bemused look. "Great plan, Jess," Marcus grinned, shaking his head. "While we're planning to overthrow a dystopian regime, let's not forget our hydration. Hydrate and dominate." Jess threw back, and the group shared a light, spontaneous laughter that temporarily softened the pall of dread lingering over their heads. "Enough with the clown act," Gwendolyn said, half smirking, half exasperated. "We need to focus." The laughter died down, leaving room for the tension to creep back in, thick enough to cut. Sylas moved closer to Gwendolyn, sensing a palpable energy, the room's ambiance shifting from camaraderie to something heavier. "You think they'll see us coming?" "I hope they underestimate us," she murmured, stealing glances at the strategic patch of the map marked with their targets. The flames of rebellion flickered in her eyes. In the corner, Isaac, always the strategist, interjected. "If we can gather enough support from the other participants, we could turn the tide. But we can't betray our own people. Trust is paramount." Amy, shaded in the back, added, "And what about the elites? They won't take kindly to losing their toys. We need real muscles." She flexed her arms dramatically, prompting chuckles once more. "Right, because they're so scared of your biceps." Isaac teased, raising an eyebrow. "Better than relying on just our brains." Amy shot back, a playful glare dancing on her face. Just then, a tremor of silence descended as Sylas and Gwendolyn shared a glance, the laughter around them fading into an unsteady backdrop. Time seemed suspended, allowing the space between them to throb with something unspoken. Sylas stepped closer, their breath a syncopated rhythm, mingling in the confined air. "Gwen," Sylas began, but the words evaporated under the weight of his gaze on her lips. He felt vulnerable, a feeling he loathed, battling against the walls he built so high. "What is it, Sylas?" She leaned in minutely, her warmth an invitation, yet something sharper electrifying the distance between them. Suddenly, Jess erupted, cracking another joke about the shade of Sylas's shirt, and the moment shattered. Laughter erupted again, splintering the tension, yet a flicker remained. Tethering Sylas and Gwendolyn like dancers on a precipice. As the chatter continued, brushing against the urgency of their plans, Sylas slowly reached out, his fingers grazing the back of her hand. She turned, her eyes wide, but not with fear. Curiosity colored her expression. The moment hung, an exquisite tension woven through the fabric of rebellion. Then their worlds surged again with laughter, punctured by the urgency of their conspiracy. But Sylas saw it in her eyes, the soft yet fierce honesty that made him long for connection. "Let's get back to work," he whispered, squeezing her hand, temporarily anchoring them before the chaos resumed. For now, they would plan a coup, cloaked in laughter and determination. Each whisper a step towards everything that lay beyond the shadows, a profound understanding shadowing the heat of new beginnings. Scene 62. Testing the waters. The air in the makeshift arena was thick with anticipation, a hot, suffocating envelope that clung to skin like a second layer. Flickering overhead lights cast erratic shadows across the cracked concrete, making the faces of the gathering players flicker in the dimness. A distant rumble of thunder echoed, a warning of the storm brewing outside, matching the undercurrents of tension dancing among the group. Sylas Archer leaned against a rusted pillar, arms crossed, his dark curls slightly damp against his forehead as sweat trickled down the nape of his neck. His heart raced, not from fear, but from the struggle of masked alliances and divided loyalties swirling around him. "Is everyone clear on the plan?" Gwendolyn Frost's voice sliced through the murmurs like a hot knife on butter. Her tone was crisp, each word calculated as she surveyed her surroundings. She stood tall, albeit slightly hunched, anxiety flickering in the corner of her determined brown eyes. "We need to focus on gathering resources." "Resources? Just say what you really mean, food and water. We should be planning how to get out." Derek snapped, his frustration boiling to the surface. The group buzzed, exchanging glances filled with unspoken concerns. "Sure, but without some degree of trust," Sylas interjected, his voice smooth yet laced with urgency. "We're walking into a death trap." In the back, Evelyn rubbed her temples. "All this talk about trust, it's ridiculous. How can we trust anyone in a game that thrives on betrayal?" She let a sigh escape, her voice soft yet piercing. "We'll end up with knives in our backs." "Unless we all agree to work together," Gwendolyn began, her resolve firming, but the room hummed with dissent, resonating with Derek's scoff. "Oh, come on, Gwen. You actually think that'll work?" He threw his hands up, voice rising. "These people won't change. This is not a diary writing session. It's a goddamn survival game." A heavy pause settled in, the unsaid truths filling the space. Sylas swallowed, tension burning in his chest. This alliance, the one he'd brought them all together to form, was fraying, and he could practically feel the fabric of their loyalties unraveling. "Derek's right about one thing," Caleb chimed in, leaning against the wall, his thin frame taking on a relaxed air that belied the flicker of anxiety in his blue eyes. We can't trust anyone unless we have leverage. Leverage? Gwendolyn's brow furrowed. You mean holding dirty secrets over each other's heads? Hey, it's just survival, Caleb shrugged nonchalantly, but a flicker of doubt crossed his features. Whatever it takes, right? Chloe, among the shadowed corners, crossed her arms tightly, her palms squeezed white against her skin as she stared daggers at Caleb. You mean you'd be willing to sell out a teammate to stay alive? Her voice quivered with disdain. Only the ones who make the first move, Caleb replied, his smirk infuriating in its simplicity. Enough. Sylas stepped forward, catching Gwendolyn's shifting gaze. She narrowed her eyes, a flash of something unnamable passing between them, a connection engineered by their shared understanding of stakes far beyond survival alone. Amidst the bickering, a clutter of disjointed laughter erupted from another group huddled at the far end, prompting Derek to scowl. What's so funny? He barked. It's just, never mind. It was Mia, her laughter shimmering like sunshine through storm clouds, drawing everyone's attention. She paused, meeting Derek's glare, before twisting her lips into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. We could use some humor, don't you think? It might prevent us from getting too dark, or should we just brood like the world's most boring Shakespearean tragedy? Not a bad idea, Gwendolyn said lightly, her lips curving ever so slightly. We're mostly here for survival, darling. Derek retorted, rolling his eyes. And as their conflicting sentiments clashed, thickening the air with raw emotion, Sylas found himself stepping back from the cacophony. Gwendolyn's fierce determination shone bright against the shadows of doubt surrounding them, and despite the brewing chaos, he marveled at her resilience, her defiance almost magnetic. Testing the waters is essential, he finally said, a slight smile tugging at his lips. But I'd suggest we tread lightly. We're all in this together, whether we like it or not. The group fell silent, the flickering lights amplifying the weight of his words. Trust felt like a fragile thread dangling above a pit of chaos, and Gwendolyn's gaze locked onto Sylas, a shared understanding flickering to life, elusive yet compelling. To an uneasy alliance, she said finally, raising an imaginary glass, eliciting a wave of begrudging acceptance from the rest. To an uneasy alliance, they echoed, but Sylas could sense the lingering doubt threaded through the air, heavy like an unbreakable bond. And as the storm outside intensified, their fragile fates were swept toward an uncertain horizon, where trust was the only lifeline they had to grasp. Scene 63. A desperate plan. The empty room echoed with the sound of Gwendolyn's thoughts. Shadows danced across the stone walls, flickering from the faint light of a single bare bulb hanging above them. She leaned against the rough surface, feeling the coolness seep into her skin. The whispers of doubt and indecision clung to her like a second skin, and yet, beneath the surface, a fire ignited. Sylas stood not far away, his posture both relaxed and ready, like a predator coiled, waiting. Are we really doing this? Gwendolyn finally broke the silence, her voice low, the tension hanging thick between them. Sylas met her gaze, the corners of his mouth twitching into a half-smile, masking his own fear. It's either this or waiting for them to decide our fate. I'd rather be proactive. Eager nods of agreement rippled through her. His confidence bolstered her resolve. They think we're just pawns in this game, Sylas, but we can flip the board. Flip the board? He chuckled, a sound that felt oddly loud against the stone walls. Sounds messy, but I like the idea. His voice dropped, thick with sincerity. What do you want to do? In that moment, as their bond crackled with unspoken energy, Gwendolyn hesitated. The plan distilled in her mind, forming into something almost tangible yet vulnerable. We expose the elites, she declared. We find evidence of their schemes and turn their game into chaos. You drive a hard bargain, he said, walking closer. The space between them evaporated, his presence flooding her senses. And what if it costs us everything? Then we fight for what's right. The conviction in her voice surged, intertwining with an electric tension that caught them both off guard. Sylas's breath caught, the moment stretching like elastic. We can't tip our hand too soon, he warned. There are eyes everywhere. But the anticipation hung thick as he took another step towards her. Let them watch, Gwendolyn murmured, emboldened. We need allies, information. We need. Before she could finish, Sylas closed the distance between them, capturing her exploration with gentle intensity. The weight of his touch was both unexpected and familiar. It grounded them in a chaotic world. Her heart raced, pounding like war drums in her chest. "Gwen," he whispered, his breath mingling with hers. "We're not just fighting for ourselves, we'll be putting everyone at risk." Yet his words drifted into a meaningless backdrop, as if utterly irrelevant in the face of this heightened, visceral connection. "I know," she breathed, but her resolve was like steel. "I wouldn't have it any other way." And then time seemed to halt as their lips met, the kiss igniting sparks like kindlings set to flame. It was not merely a physical connection, it was an awakening of something deeper and unexplainable. A force that fused their souls, two hearts in a deadly game, daring to feel something beyond survival. Just then, the door creaked open, throwing a shaft of muted light into the room. Remy, a fellow participant, ventured in, his brow furrowed in confusion. "What on earth?" The moment shattered like glass. Gwendolyn stepped back, cheeks flushing with a mix of exhilaration and embarrassment. "No, it's not what it looks like," she stammered, a flurry of adrenaline whipping through the air, ricocheting off each of them. "Looks like you're cooking up a storm in here," Remy quipped, trying to mask the surprise in his eyes with a teasing grin. Sylas's stance relaxed, but his eyes were still ablaze with the lingering heat of the moment. "This isn't a good time, Remy." "Right," Remy said, raising his hands in mock surrender. "Just wanted to make sure I wasn't interrupting a secret plot to overthrow the game." "That's actually our plan," Gwendolyn shot back, her embarrassment giving way to resolve. "And now it's yours, too." Remy's expression shifted, adrenaline curtailing his humor. "You serious? Because if this is real, I'm all in." Sylas glanced at Gwendolyn, their plans intertwining, the urgency solidifying their bond. "Welcome to the Resistance." As the gravity of their mission settled into the air thick with anticipation, Gwendolyn knew they were standing at the precipice of something monumental. A desperate plan, intricately woven between hope and risk and deeper layers of connection that couldn't be ignored. The path ahead was uncertain, but they would forge it together. Scene 64. Existential dilemmas. The air was thick with impending rain, the sky darkening as clouds twisted into ominous shapes overhead. Sylas Archer stood close to the edge of the makeshift arena, his mind racing like the wind that messily tossed his hair. He could feel the weight of his previous decisions pressing against his chest, each breath a reminder of the lives disrupted by the game they played. Beneath his casual demeanor flickered a tempest of guilt and regret, emotions he seldom showed. Turning his back on the swirling chaos, he caught sight of Gwendolyn Frost at the center of the arena. Her determination radiated outward, drawing broken shards of everyone's hope into her orbit. She was a warrior, formidable and instinctive, barking orders at the small group of survivors gathered around her. Sylas couldn't help but admire how she shaped despair into resolve, even as uncertainty gnawed at their collective psyche. "Listen up. The rules are not on our side, but we can't let despair take hold." Gwendolyn shouted, her voice sharp against the roar of the approaching storm. "We've survived this far. They want us to turn on each other. Not today." From the corner, Alara, a soft-spoken artist with hues of rebellion woven into her attire, replied hesitantly, "But what if it's our only chance? What if we have to betray someone too?" "No," Gwendolyn cut in fiercely, a fire dancing in her chest. "We refuse to play their twisted game. We stand together or we fall apart." Sylas felt drawn into her conviction, yet the nagging question remained. How far would they each go to survive? Would he, too, succumb to the desperate calculus of betrayal if it meant saving others? His past loomed like a specter he desperately tried to outrun. Meanwhile, among the shadows, Callum, the group's self-proclaimed survivalist, grinned deviously while sharpening a knife. "You lot are playing checkers. I'm playing chess. Sometimes you need to sacrifice the pawns to save the queen." His laughter rang hollow, and others exchanged wary glances, suspicion rising like the humidity before the storm. Sylas stepped away from Gwendolyn's intense presence momentarily, the tension crackling like static in his veins. His eyes met Callum's in a silent battle of wills, each measuring the other's intentions. "And who do you consider the queen?" Sylas quipped, unable to suppress the smile that broke through his grim exterior. "Anyone who survives long enough, mate," Callum replied nonchalantly. His eyes glinted with the thrill of the impending game, but Sylas sensed a darker undertone beneath that bravado. Just as the storm broke, torrents of rain began drenching the arena, blurring contours and merging the locale into a wash of colors. Sylas glanced back toward Gwendolyn, whose fire didn't seem to wane even in the downpour. She shouted something into the noise, though he couldn't quite catch her words. All he knew was that he wanted to be near her, to draw strength from her fierce presence. "Get back here." Another voice cut through the zephyr. It was Janelle, the sensitive healer, racing toward the group after collecting rain-soaked herbs, her arms laden with greenery. "This storm makes it harder to see. Together." "We'll need every advantage we can get," Gwendolyn insisted, urgency spilling from her every word. Sylas moved closer, water soaking through his shirt, molding it against his skin as adrenaline pulsed with each heartbeat. He glanced down at his hands, still trembling with the weight of choices he had yet to make. "What's the plan if we have to fight them?" he asked, scanning their faces, seeing confusion morph into determination. "We improvise," Gwendolyn replied with fire in her spirit and steel in her voice, the storm highlighting the fierce array of emotions she bore. "But first, we protect each other. Only then will we turn the tables." As she spoke, the energy shifted, a swirling mix of hope and dread crashing against the storm's fury. Callum's laugh echoed over the din, but it felt hollow, uninspired amid growing camaraderie. "Just remember," he called out with a feigned air of nonchalance, "anyone could be an enemy, even the ones you trust most." The promise of rain lingered in the air, as thunder rolled like drums announcing the battle to come. Sylas locked eyes with Gwendolyn. Each second spent away from her felt like abandoning a lifeline. He stepped closer, joining the circle they formed, their camaraderie sealing them in a fragile unity that might just withstand the storm. "Together," he echoed, catching the radiant spark in Gwendolyn's eyes, a promise amid the chaos. In that moment, he realized it was no longer just survival. It was something greater.